Christian Jack alongside Jesse Marsch. We're 3 days out from another huge game in the CONCACAF Nations League against Suriname. We're here in Florida at your camp. Before we get into lots of the news stories, how's everything going?
Good. It's been warm down here, so the guys have had to put a lot into training, but we know from Copa America when we had to deal with a lot of heat that they always give everything they have. It's always fun to bring everybody back together, and the energy of the group is always so high. So it's only been 2.5 days, but really good 2.5 days.
You mentioned bringing everyone back together. I think it's almost your 5th camp already when you think of what you had in the summer with the European trip kind of into Copa America, then you had the US games, and then obviously the Panama game. Do you feel quite fortunate to have that amount of windows in a short amount of time?
Yeah, and I think we've made a lot of progress, and we had a meeting in this room actually earlier today, kind of bringing everything back together. And we talked about now we have a group that everyone has been in at least once, with now what we're doing with myself as the head coach. Yeah. And I think the understanding of how we work, how we play, who we want to be, the mentality, the identity, it's really clear. And it's great that they all understand and can commit to it every day. When they come back in, I think they acclimate to training immediately. They obviously enjoy seeing each other and being with each other. But yeah, I mean, it always gives me great hope for the team that we can become by just being around them every day. Excellent.
We'll get more into the team soon. The big news is your captain. He's not here. When he told you the news, how did you take it?
Yeah, we had a good discussion, and the first thing I said to him was, I know the demands of European football and high-level football with Champions League. And then because we went on a run in Copa, it also meant that most of those guys had 10 days off for the summer. It's ridiculous. The demands now for high-level players between club and international football are too much. And, even when you start to think because a lot of times in Europe, they think, okay, they go to their national team and it's 2 countries away or somewhere in Europe. I coached Asians in Europe too, and they have to fly all the way to Korea and Japan, which is double the flight of what our guys experience. So, I don't know what the solutions are, but I understood why Fonzie felt the way he did. And then we just discussed as a leadership council, all of us together, okay, how do we handle these moments? Making sure that we communicate with each other and that we're all on the same page and that we can continue to have a really high level of accountability and responsibility, but also be flexible enough to know at the right times that there are extenuating circumstances that players need to be supported. And so everybody's been really supportive of Fonzie.
It is a setback, but it's not like he's done it before,
no.
Right? That's obviously helpful, but it's not a pattern.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that Fonzie's committed all the way. It's a unique situation because of I think he said he played 14 90-minute matches in a row. He's trying to sort out his contract situation, which you would guess by January that between pre-contracts and everything else that things will become clearer. So there's a lot going on for him right now, and I think we understand that. And then, of course, the demands for our captain are different, and so in some ways it's not fair, but that's the expectation, that he can be all the things that we need him to be, and he's driven to do that, and we're gonna help him continue to grow into that role the right way.
You mentioned you don't know the solution, but it is not just Alphonso Davies, Lewandowski, Mbappe, 8-9 England players just yesterday.
Yeah.
It's happening all across the game.
Yeah.
You've been on the other side of it, and you probably will be on the other side of it again, by the way, in the next few years. Is it just about player welfare? Is it just making sure that we're just good to each other when these situations come up, rather than saying that they're looking after themselves and only looking after the club? Because ultimately, you just put it on the player and think they will make the best decision at the best time.
Well, look, you're right. I have been from the club side. I always really respected the national team. And I knew, because I had played for the national team, I had worked for the national team, I knew the value that it brings to player development and how it helps them grow. That's not the case everywhere, right? And if you want to talk about Germany specifically, when I was in Germany, they were always trying to sneak around to keep players out of the international break, which I don't think is right.
England too.
Yeah. Well, look, and then so is it player care? Is it care for players, or is it that also that these different organizations want a money grab because they know that a Club World Cup will be big. They know that, additional nations leagues and all, it becomes a business, and sometimes it becomes a really ugly business. And it's important when you're in the middle of it to be able to see through it and now really get to the core of what are the important issues so that we look after each other. And players don't have 30 years to have a career. They have to get the most out of the time that they can be performing at the highest level. And when you're with the national team, I think you really have to understand that we're not paying them full time, that they're employees of someone else, that when they come in here, it's more about it's an honor, it's a privilege, and the players all treat it that way, by the way. But it's also, you got to be careful because like England, like you said, if now all of a sudden one player says, I'm not coming, and then another player thinks it's okay to not come, and the culture is that it's not full commitment and you're not all in, then it can fall apart. So all I can say about my time here is that the players feel a huge responsibility to this national team, to each other, and specifically with 2026 coming around the corner, they want to make sure that we don't let ourselves down for that moment.
And do you think that will help when the Club World Cup happens next summer? Because that's happening almost at the same time as the Gold Cup, right? Again, and I suppose with Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies in particular, you may not be able to answer that question too much because you don't know where the clubs are going to be and who they're going to be with.
No, Christian, the Club World Cup takes precedent over international football in that window.
Yeah.
So if any of our players are playing with a club in that window, they have to go to that tournament.
Is that right?
I don't know.
The Gold Cup is a regional tournament.
The timing, personally, I just think the club, to expand it to 24 teams or whatever it is ridiculous.
Right.
So that part I don't think is right. Whether they should be allowed to do this or that I don't really care to speak about or know or have an opinion on. But more that, now they're creating a Club World Cup that puts all these demands. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And by the way, they're going to have it in the U.S. It's going to be hot as hell. It's going to be very difficult for teams and players to manage. They're going to have no summer. Then they're going to lead themselves into a season where then they go into the World Cup. You can risk injury. You can have lots of problems in these situations. So it's too much. The players are being challenged too much. And we all that are big fans of them, of course, we want to see them play and we want to see them be successful and we want to see great games, but the quality of the matches are going to drop too because the players just won't have the energy and commitment and the wherewithal and the mental fortitude to be there for every match if they play between 70 and 80 matches a year. It's ridiculous.
Too much.
Yeah.
Let's turn it into a positive. Gold Cup with Alphonso or without Alphonso, with Jonathan or without Jonathan is a trophy you want to win. Nations League in March is a trophy you want to win. How imperative is it now that you try and get one of those for this group? Because it seems like you're moving forward to 2026. We know that. It feels almost that the team is almost ready, to try and get to that final and win something. Yeah,
I think internally we are, first of all, focused right now on Suriname and making sure that we continue to play the way we want to play, that we have the commitment on the pitch and the performances on the pitch, to continue to build momentum. I've said all along, there's going to be challenges along the way, and we'll figure out how to deal with them. But we need those challenges, and whether it's this tournament or this tournament in the summer with the Gold Cup, we need good matches, and we need to be put in situations where it's time to deliver and find out ways, to be at our best. We did that at Copa America. We've done that really at every step along the way, but we'll continue to push. And I think our internal expectations and our internal demands for each other continue to grow.
That first game in Suriname, Friday night, live on One Soccer. The second leg back at BMO, which you've now experienced.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
That was awesome. Especially the way that the game played out. It was another game where I felt like we could have easily been ahead more than 1-0 and really been in the driver's seat of how the match was played. But Panama, actually, I thought, given they made some rotations and they played really well and they came into BMO and challenged us. And I told the team after that the best thing was at 1-1, they performed the best, right? And they didn't back down and they knew that, okay, now we got to put it into another gear. We can do that more from the beginning, but in general, that experience was a good one for our team. And then being in front of, I thought the energy in BMO was awesome. The whole experience after the game of the win and the people kind of being able to show their appreciation. The sense I got was that, they're appreciative of Copa America. They're appreciative of their performance on the night. And they're all just really excited about the potential of the team. I think that's the growing sentiment inside Canada right now, and we're trying to make sure that the work we do together honors that.
You won't say this, but the growing sentiment is also that Canada's falling in love with you, by the way.
Okay.
They are. I mean, ultimately, and I think the other thing is that you've embraced Canada. You almost feel Canadian to a lot of Canadians, the way that you spent so much time there. You talk about the Canadian Premier League, you travel around Quebec.
Yeah.
You hire Canadian coaches, which you continue to do. We saw Patrice Geyser, we've had Mario Eustachio, we've had Martin Nash. Why is that so crucial for you?
It's a big responsibility, I think, to represent a national team and a nation, and I take that very seriously, and I make sure that everything we do is working in the direction to make the game better in this country. And, it's been awesome. And I also know that there can be some negativity around the national team sometimes and around the national team coach, especially if he's a foreigner. Like we've experienced this in the US. I've seen it happen at different places in Europe. So I've tried in every way to show that I'm here to help and that I'm here for the right reasons. And whether it's coaching symposiums or being at PDP championships or being at CPL matches or meeting with different people from different aspects and spheres of influence of the sport around the country, I'm looking to hear what they think, what they've seen, what they've learned, to hear what they think of what we're doing. And when they ask questions about how we're doing it and what we're trying to achieve, I try to provide insight as to what we think is important. I've learned from these players and people around the game in Canada, like what humility is, what selflessness is, what commitment is, what togetherness is, and so I'm just trying to honor what the position is and means. And it's been, I love it. I love it because I get the sense when I travel around and when I meet people that, that they want to help, that they want to feel attached to it, that they want to be part of it. And so it's my job to make sure that they feel like that they get that experience.
That's really, really nice. Just a couple more with you, and thanks so much for your time. You mentioned the CPL. We had a national final on Saturday. I know you and the team watched. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought, look, it was a good game. It was a spirited game. I thought Calvary in the first half was really good and pushed the game. The penalty, I don't know. Could have gone either way, but certainly I thought that Calvary deserved the lead in the first half. It was good to see some explosive play, some talented players on the pitch. Continuing to try to encourage that league to play young players, even in big games, right? So both teams had a couple of young players on the pitch, which I thought was good. And I mean, I thought I haven't been to the Calvary Stadium yet, but watching the match, I was like, I need to get to a match.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, because it looked like a really cool environment and a really cool stadium, and it just looked like a Canadian League final. I loved it.
I'm glad you watched it. It was an honor to be there. Last one for you, Jesse, is these two games now. I know you've preached a lot about getting 90-minute performances. Aside from that, what is it that you're really looking for to when you leave BMO on Tuesday to go, you know what, regardless of the results, I got what I needed here?
I think it's to understand exactly what the situation is, who the opponent is, what the challenge of this home and away matchup is, what are Suriname's strengths and weaknesses, and two mature performances that show that we understand how to handle each moment along the way. And I think maybe one of the best experiences for that with our team was when we played Mexico. In the third minute, they had already delivered a foul that was a little nasty, and it was clear that on the day they were going to make sure that that they weren't going to let us play, and that if they had to make the game ugly, they were going to make the game ugly. And our players they weren't fazed. They weren't complaining to the ref. It was like there was kind of this look around the pitch like, okay, this is the kind of match they're going to throw at us. All right, we're ready for that. And I think that as we're developing and talking about our style of play and the way that we want to play football and the team we want to become, so much of it is about the maturity of the group understanding how to handle each step along the way. So here we are. This is a very meaningful match, two very meaningful matches for us against a difficult opponent, dangerous opponent, and even going down and the travel and the heat and everything, there's enough factors that you could make excuses about if something slips up, like why it slipped up. But we can't have any room for that. It's just about focus and concentration to be our best and to make sure that we're ready to deliver big performances.
And be blessed to have 2 more competitive games, right? To close the calendar year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Always a pleasure.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
you. Thank you.
All right.